There is a curious ritual in British media, and once you notice it, you cannot unsee it. A controversy sparks over here, a governance question bubbles up over there, and somehow, almost theatrically, the spotlight swivels and lands squarely on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. You blink, check the headline again, and wonder how on earth we arrived at this destination. This latest episode began, ostensibly, with criticism surrounding BAFTA and issues of diversity within the institution. A serious topic. Representation, accountability, structural leadership, these are not trivial debates. They deserve clarity and focus. And here's where it becomes intriguing. The president of BAFTA is none other than Prince William. If we are discussing institutional responsibility, governance, or cultural direction, logically that role carries symbolic weight. Yet, in a piece by Camilla Tominey, the narrative reportedly veered. Instead of anchoring firmly on William's presidential position, attention drifted toward Harry, his mental health, even his immigration status. Now, as someone who has watched royal coverage evolve for decades, I can tell you that narrative pivots are rarely accidental. They are choices, editorial ones. And that choice raised eyebrows. If the issue concerns BAFTA's leadership and its response to diversity criticism, then surely the president's influence merits exploration. Omitting that center of gravity while reintroducing Harry, who holds no role within the institution, feels less like structural analysis and more like narrative reflex. There's a pattern here, and many readers feel it. Any royal controversy, regardless of its origin, appears capable of absorbing the Sussexes into its orbit. It is as though their names function as gravitational anchors for attention. The moment discourse threatens to become procedural or institutional, a familiar pair is invoked, and suddenly the emotional temperature rises. Now, to be fair, Camilla Tominey is not a newcomer to contentious royal commentary. Her previous pieces about Meghan have drawn sharp criticism from those who believe her tone veers into bias. Comparisons, character sketches, broader cultural commentary, all of it has been dissected and debated. So when a new article emerges that seems to position Harry or Meghan negatively, it does not land in a vacuum. It lands in a field already charged with suspicion. And this is where the story becomes larger than one column. There is an ongoing conversation in Britain about race, representation, and institutional reform. When diversity debates surface within venerable organizations, the stakes are not merely reputational, they are cultural. Yet instead of remaining anchored to systemic questions, discussions often drift toward individuals who have long been lightning rods for division. Meghan, in particular, occupies a uniquely combustible space in the British press. For some, she represents modernization, disruption, a challenge to tradition. For others, she symbolizes controversy, fracture, and cultural tension. When comparisons are made, even sarcastically, to other prominent women of color on the global stage, it exposes underlying anxieties about success, visibility, and public acceptance. So when a BAFTA governance conversation becomes once again a Sussex conversation, critics begin to wonder whether we are witnessing analysis or deflection. And here's where my own seasoned perspective leans in. Media ecosystems thrive on familiarity. Harry and Meghan generate clicks, debate, and emotion with remarkable reliability. They are, for better or worse, headline accelerants. But that very reliability risks distorting discourse. When institutional scrutiny is redirected toward personalities with no formal authority in the matter, something substantive can get lost. This is not about shielding anyone from critique. Public figures invite examination. But proportionality matters. If we are interrogating BAFTA's response to diversity concerns, the leadership structure, including its president, should logically be part of that conversation. Skirting that reality while spotlighting Harry feels at best selective. And perhaps that selectivity explains the public's fatigue. There is a growing sense among observers that certain segments of the press remain fixated. that no royal-adjacent narrative feels complete without a Sussex reference. It creates an impression that the couple function less as participants in events and more as narrative seasoning sprinkled onto unrelated dishes. The irony is striking. Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties years ago, yet their presence in media discourse often feels omnipresent. They are simultaneously peripheral and central, detached and indispensable to the story machine. At the Crown Talk UK, I always encourage us to examine not just the headline, but the framing. Who benefits from the pivot? What original issue is softened or sidelined by the redirection? And crucially, does this help resolve the systemic question at hand? Because the deeper risk here is not reputational harm to individuals, it is the dilution of institutional accountability. When governance debates morph into personality sagas, reform conversations can evaporate into familiar trenches of pro- and anti-Sussex commentary. And that cycle, frankly, serves no one particularly well. If you're finding this analysis valuable, do consider liking and subscribing to the Crown Talk UK. Thoughtful engagement keeps these discussions grounded rather than reactionary. In the end, this isn't about declaring heroes or villains. It's about recognizing patterns. When a discussion about BAFTA becomes a discussion about Harry, we must ask whether we are confronting structural issues or rehearsing old narratives. Harry and Meghan remain potent media figures. Their names ignite attention. But perhaps the more pressing question is this: does constantly reintroducing them into every royal-adjacent controversy clarify the national conversation, or simply keep the emotional carousel spinning? Because if we truly care about representation, leadership, and reform within British institutions, we owe it to ourselves to keep our